The goal of today's event is to have a conversation about what occurred, what the impact has been on Japan and Japanese people, and international implications for the nuclear power industry worldwide.
What's actually unprecedented in this event is that there were 4 reactors that have had problems at the same time. There's been a whole series of things going. There have been heroic efforts by the workers there to try and contain this. So far it's been well contained and the containment has worked. But there has been radiation released and we're going to have to understand the consequences of that. So by design, a nuclear reactor can never explode like an atomic bomb or an atomic weapon. An important feature to keep in mind of this design is that you have spent fuel pools that are actually adjacent to the reactor. And in this case of this design, stored above grade. A concern I've had and a number of other people have had is that the evacuation zone is 20 kilometers and there's a shelter-in-place zone of 30 kilometers. But in fact, radiation doesn't disperse itself from an incident like this uniformly. It tends to blob around, and that certainly was the experience from Chernobyl. People who had been outside during that entire exposure would have a 0.35% chance of getting cancer induced by this radiation.
In the United States, we have the Department of Energy, which develops technologies, nuclear reactor designs and other technologies, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, completely independent of that, right, which regulates plants and enforces safety standards. In Japan, right, these 2 functions have been combined into a single ministry, right? And I think that what that's led to is a less rigorous regulatory environment in Japan. But I think that there are structural steps and regulatory measures we've taken that make it demonstrably less likely for a similar event in the United States.
There have been valiant efforts to contain it by radiation workers who are expected to be at the site and expected to be exposed to a certain degree. And those workers are at greater risk for long-term effects from ionizing radiations. I don't think that they were at risk for the levels that have quite rightly been pointed out as causing symptoms from radiation illness. I don't think they got doses of that order of magnitude. So, yes, there's risk. It's closest to the event. It is much less elsewhere in Japan. It is vanishingly small in the United States.
The oil impact of this accident is going to be same thing, infinitesimally small. Japanese oil demand over the next few months will be 250,000 barrels a day lower than it would otherwise have been had the accident not occurred. As we see a little bit of a drop maybe in nuclear power utilization in different countries, maybe some plants that are running on natural gas might run at a higher rate, and that'll take some of the surplus off of the market for gas. But lucky for us, we're in a surplus gas situation.
An active guide, a combination of events, could always replicate conditions that are as bad or worse. We have to minimize the impact of those conditions. I can't say that it'll never happen.